Good morning, friends. My name is Marsha Foxman. I'm your Wentworth candidate in the Palmer United Party. Please read my biography at marshafoxman.com.au. I've lived in Wentworth, in Bondi, all my life, and I've been in business here for 40 years. I and my party stand for fixing the massive problems in our country, economically and thus socially, created by both Liberal and Labor in a very corrupted political system. Around 100 years ago, life in Australia was very different and people were happy. It was a time when owning your own home was very achievable on a single income. But today, for many, it's just a dream, even with two incomes. Then, Dad's income was enough to enable Mum to stay at home and raise the family. They had stability, and we had a large middle class, which today has been replaced with a large welfare society. Then, jobs and opportunities were plentiful, and individually and collectively we had prosperity. With taxation at about 2% at that time, there were none of the more than 35 taxes, rates and levies as we are burdened with today. This country grew on the sheep's back to prosperity. We enjoyed thriving manufacturing and agricultural interests. But today, most of our interests have moved overseas for better business conditions, or rather than go broke. And while 2 million small businesses, for all our hard work, risk-taking and investment, struggle to survive under a barrage of counterproductive red tape. Our farmers, after generations of running their farms, are now given taxpayers' money to get off the land, while inferior produce from other countries ruins our country. Both Liberal and Labor have allowed these trade deals and allowed international interests to buy up our most prime farms and properties. Deals brokered by paid political lobbyists, buying off both sides of government for their compliances and to our detriment. This is known in some circles as treason. Our sheep, our wheat, our prime farming lands, and just about everything else of value belongs to international corporations and other countries' governments. But the new owners of Australia get to take our, or rather their, produce out under free trade agreements, contributing to our $1.3 trillion trade deficit. Both sides of government, be it for their political party's agenda or self-interest or just plain incompetence, are responsible for the destruction of our manufacturing and other industries, responsible for deregulating banks, responsible for masses of taxes, responsible for allowing our legal system to be anything but a justice system, in facilitating the inequality of bargaining power between large and small business, and to where we, as a nation, and in spite of a mining boom, are becoming further economically and socially further impoverished, as we are no longer the prosperous, lucky country. We are mortgaged to the hilt to international interests like never before in our history. In 1901, politicians were landowners, working people like you and me. They created our wealth and the lucky country, but they have been replaced with career politicians with little or no business skills, and they are determining the business of our country. This mismanagement greatly contributes to almost 50% of bankruptcies caused by poor economic conditions. But it is Liberal and Labor who cause those conditions. And when financial stresses sets into a family for poor economic conditions, people turn to alcohol and drug abuse, and violence moves into the family home and is a major contributing factor to our 50% divorce rate, leaving dysfunctional families and poverty resulting in crime, destroying lives and our entire society, where our financial and social resources are drained from the family law courts to jails to social workers to welfare to the police, and deep into the dwindling taxpayer's pocket, destroying our prosperity, our peace and our happiness, while both sides of government on 3 levels costs us 35% of GDP, or $500 billion a year. This system of paid political lobbyists controlling career politicians is very broken. Father Frank Brennan conducted an inquiry to determine if we need a Charter of Human Rights. But what he stated at the conclusion was, we must turn back the tide of criminal behaviour in powerful governments. And this is exactly what the Palmer United Party with business people seeks to do in uniting this country from the division both Liberal and Labor have created, and bring back real business and national wealth. We have issued many policies, and the costings are complete and will be released at our launch on the 25th of August. But I will cover some of those pertaining to achieving our primary objectives of reforming our political system, our legal system, and our tax system. These 3 objectives alone will produce economic and social reforms where we will enjoy stability, prosperity, and happiness again. Immediately on taking office, we will rid the country of paid political lobbyists, and only respectively skilled people will hold portfolios of health, education, etc. We will reduce tax on second and subsequent jobs by 50%. We will eliminate the fringe benefits tax and abandon and refund the carbon tax, retrospective to when it commenced, making power bills cheaper, and we will initiate new environmentally friendly alternative sources of power without more variable taxes. We will recreate our manufacturing and agricultural industries, new industries with our mineral and agricultural resources. Only Australian grown will be allowed to be on packaging, and we will protect our farms, because everything in this country will finish on the farm. 25% of taxes will go back to regional Australia, where those profits have been derived, creating new jobs, new skills opportunities, new infrastructure. With migration growing, our stagnant infrastructure just won't cope with more people unless we get our act together now. We will process asylum seekers humanely on shore, close to airports, just like they do in the UK and the USA, as a safer, more cost-effective means for them and in destroying people smugglers' business. We will immediately direct $80 billion to the front line of health. That's $17.5 billion to New South Wales in bypassing state governments who would otherwise gobble it up. Pensioners receive an additional $150 a fortnight, and we have allocated $640 million over 4 years to our veterans and their widows. Wentworth is our home, and the people of Wentworth have had no real benefits from federal government, as Mr Turnbull knows too well. Yet under Palmer United, we will be entitled to funding in project-driven initiatives based on profits from tourism. It's near impossible to get into aged care or childcare facilities here. How many families can afford $750 a week just for one child? Our transport, parking, roads, leaking water pipes, losing billions of litres of water. We need a plan to grow into. We do not need more and more reports and inquiries. If I am elected to the seat of Wentworth, I am very mindful that I am your representative, and I will be here anytime my constituents need me on any federal issue. Another of our initial political policies is the introduction of conscience votes on social issues such as gay marriage, abortion, etc. And another initiative is that Palmer United members do not have to toe the party line. I am answerable to the people of Wentworth. You will tell me by the majority what my conscience vote will be. Here's some food for thought. It took Liberal and Labor well over half a century to create their parties. And it took Professor Clive Palmer one of our most successful businessmen, who started his business life as a cleaner living out of his car, only 3 months to create his party. Imagine what we can do for all Australians in the first 3 years in office, in making Australia self-sustaining once again. If Liberal or Labor win this election in 3 years, in 2016, we will be listening to the same old broken promises, and you'll be wondering, what would this country have been like if Palmer United won the 2013 election? Every Australian needs to make a decision between an uncontrolled growing debt with Labor or cutbacks on all imperative spending by Liberal, which is how Liberal created the purported surplus by the Howard government, or an age of prosperity through business growth and development with the Palmer United Party. Palmer United is not left or right, but straight down the middle with sound business common sense.